The galaxy had never known fear like this before the Xarathians arrived, their ships descending from the void like a storm of steel and flame. Whole worlds burned beneath their advanced weapons. No warnings, no negotiations, just destruction. The first wave was swift, planets obliterated without mercy. Their sheer power and terrifying technology left every race trembling in their wake. No army could stand against them. No shield could hold back their fury. Every fleet that tried was shattered before it could even reach them. The Xarathians had become a plague upon the stars, sweeping across the galaxy, leaving nothing but ruin in their wake. The Council of the United Worlds gathered in desperation. They called for a solution, but no one had one. The great leaders of the galaxy could only watch as their civilizations fell one by one, their hopes dashed as each new report came in with news of another system lost to the invaders. In the silence that followed, there was only the bitter reality of helplessness. The few surviving voices that dared to speak out against the growing hopelessness were drowned out by fear and despair. Then came the message. It was short and simple, but it carried the weight of everything the galaxy had come to fear, encrypted and direct. It was a warning sent from the core of humanity's homeworld, Earth. Read the message aloud on the Council's main screen. It was met with disbelief by all who saw it. One ship, one mission. The humans were sending a single warship to confront the Xarathians. The Council was silent. They laughed at first. Surely this was a joke. They had seen the might of the Xarathian fleet, and now the humans wanted to face them with a solitary vessel. The entire council chamber erupted in disbelief, as if it were some kind of desperate plea from a race too weak to understand the scope of what was happening. But as the message played once more and the image of the warship was displayed on the screen, the mood shifted. The ship was real, it was massive, and it was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. The Erebus was humanity's last hope. It was a ship of unparalleled design, constructed in secrecy over the past decade. With the most advanced technologies Earth had ever created, its weapons were devastating, its shields unbreakable, its engines capable of moving through space faster than any other vessel humanity had ever built. Its purpose was clear and terrifying to the galaxy. It was built to fight the Xarathians, and it was coming. Captain Sarah Armitage stood on the bridge of the Erebus, staring out into the vastness of space. The stars glittered like diamonds in the dark, a calm before the storm. She had been in command of this ship since its inception, and now she was about to lead it into the heart of enemy territory. Her hands gripped the armrests of her command chair, her crew behind her. She felt the weight of their eyes on her, knowing they were ready to follow her into hell. It would not be easy, it would not be quick, but humanity had no other choice. The Erebus was their only hope, and with that hope came a heavy responsibility. The warship surged forward into the depths of space, its engines roaring as it cut through the darkness. The galaxy would soon know the power of humanity and the promise that they would not go quietly into the night. As the Erebus plunged deeper into Xarathian space, Captain Sarah Armitage stood in grim silence, her eyes locked on the starry expanse ahead. The vastness of the galaxy stretched out before her, but there was no comfort in the emptiness. Every moment they drifted closer to the Xarathian war machine. Every second spent moving toward the inevitable clash felt like a countdown. The crew felt it too. The tension was palpable, a coiled spring ready to snap. The ship's sensors picked up a massive fleet forming at the edge of their detection range. The Xarathians were waiting. They knew they were coming. Armitage gritted her teeth. The Erebus was humanity's last hope, and she would not let it fall without a fight. Prepare for battle stations. Armitage's voice cut through the silence, calm but firm. The crew jumped into action, securing weapons, adjusting shields, and monitoring every system with precise efficiency. No one spoke, but every person aboard understood the gravity of the situation. They had no backup, no reinforcements. It was just them against the storm. The enemy fleet appeared on the forward display, a sprawling armada of sleek black warships, each one bristling with weapons and advanced energy shields. The Xarathians had been tearing through the galaxy with this force, and now they were about to test humanity's resolve. The alien ships loomed, waiting for the first shot to be fired. Armitage gave the order. Fire. The Erebus weapons roared to life. Massive energy beams shot across the void, hitting the nearest Sarathian ships with terrifying precision. The energy shields of the enemy vessels flared bright, absorbing the first wave, but the sheer power of the Erebus fire shook them to their core. The enemy was not prepared for this. They had underestimated the humans. For a brief moment, it seemed as though the tide might turn in humanity's favor. The first few Exarathian ships exploded in brilliant fireballs, their massive frames torn apart by the Erebus attacks. But the moment of victory was short-lived. The Exarathians adapted quickly, unleashing a devastating counterattack. The Erebus shields flared as enemy fire rained down, slamming into its hull and causing deep, resounding tremors throughout the ship. Shields holding at 65%, the tactical officer called out. "We're taking hits from multiple directions." Armitage's heart pounded, but her voice remained steady. "All systems report. Prepare to engage evasive maneuvers." The Erebus weaved through the firestorm, dodging incoming shots as best as it could. The ship's advanced engines hummed with power as it banked sharply, narrowly avoiding a lethal barrage. A new wave of Tarathian fighters swooped in from all directions, like a swarm of locusts. The crew fought back with everything they had. Laser turrets fired relentlessly, missiles streaked through the black void, and energy cannons tore through enemy ships with brutal precision. But the numbers were overwhelming. The Erebus was a giant, but it was alone in a sea of alien ships. The battle was relentless. Then, a sudden shudder rattled the entire ship. Direct hit on the starboard side. The chief engineer shouted, "Hull breach in Section 12. Seal off the area and reroute power," Armitage ordered without hesitation. "We fight on." The enemy fleet advanced, but the Erebus wasn't backing down. With a sudden burst of speed, Armitage led the ship into the heart of the enemy fleet, launching a devastating surprise attack. The Erebus surged forward, its weapons lighting up the battlefield in a continuous barrage. Explosions erupted across the enemy lines as ships were torn apart. Despite their numerical superiority, the Exarathians could not counter the Erebus relentless assault. The battle raged on for hours, but in the end, it was the human warship that struck the decisive blow. The flagship of the Sarathian fleet, a massive dreadnought, was left crippled, its engines failing as it limped away from the battle. But the victory came at a great cost. The Erebus was heavily damaged, its hull scarred and battered, systems flickering on the brink of collapse. And yet, despite the damage, despite the overwhelming odds, Captain Armitage knew they had done the impossible. The message had been sent. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As the Erebus limped back toward the edges of the battle, the crew shared a moment of triumph. They had won the first battle, but they knew the war was far from over. The Exarathians would return, and next time, they wouldn't be so easily fooled. The battle had been a shock to the entire galaxy. News of the Erebus victory over the Exarathians spread like wildfire, stirring emotions from terror to disbelief. The Galactic Council, which had once scoffed at humanity's solitary warship, was now forced to reconsider their assumptions. A single human vessel had brought down a major portion of the Sarathian fleet. It was not a fluke, it was a statement. The Erebus was more than a symbol of humanity's defiance. It was a weapon the alien invaders hadn't anticipated. The Erebus drifted in space, its hull scarred from the intense battle. Captain Sarah Armitage stood at the bridge, staring at the repairs underway on the tactical display. Despite their victory, they were far from safe. The Exarathians had suffered a loss, but they were not ones to retreat without retaliation. Armitage knew that the next encounter would be even more perilous. The silence was deafening as the crew moved in a practiced rhythm, working through the damage while monitoring the expanding Sarathian threat. "Captain," the communications officer said, breaking the stillness, "we've received a message from the Council. They're requesting an update." Armitage didn't respond right away, her fingers tracing the edge of her console. The Council had been skeptical of humanity's ability to withstand the Sarathian onslaught. Now, they wanted answers. "Patch it through," she said quietly. A holographic projection flickered to life before her, displaying the faces of several prominent council leaders. Their expressions were a mix of relief and incredulity. The leader of the coalition, Damaris Ileana, a tall, angular figure, spoke first. "Captain Armitage, we must commend you on your success. The Erebus has done what no one thought possible, but the threat is far from over. The Exarathians will retaliate with everything they have. What are your plans?" Armitage's gaze hardened as she looked at the projection. "We are not out of danger," she said. "The Erebus will need repairs, but we won't stop. We will continue to strike at their supply lines, disrupt their forces, and weaken them at every opportunity. But make no mistake, we need more than just one ship." Ileana's face stiffened. "Are you asking for reinforcements?" "No," Armitage replied, her voice steely. "We don't have the time. The Erebus will carry the fight to them, but we need a united front. Humanity can lead the way, but only if other species are willing to fight with us. If the galaxy doesn't act now, we'll all fall." Her words hung in the air, sharp and clear. The council was silent for a long moment. Then, Ileana nodded. "You have our attention, Captain, but we are not the only ones who must decide. We will convene a new assembly. But know this, Earth has become a symbol of defiance. You've proven the impossible is possible." As the hologram faded, Armitage remained still, her mind racing. She knew this was only the beginning. The Exarathians would not simply stand by and allow their empire to be challenged. They would learn, adapt, and counterattack. And yet, despite the odds, there was a flicker of hope in her chest. For the first time, the galaxy had seen that humanity could be more than just survivors. They could be warriors. "Captain, the Exarathians are advancing," the tactical officer reported, interrupting her thoughts. "A large fleet is approaching at high speed." Armitage turned her gaze toward the screens. It was as she expected. The Exarathians were regrouping. They were angry, and now they would come at them with greater force. She had no illusions that this would be an easy fight. The Erebus was battered, and the crew was weary from their previous battle. Yet there was no turning back now. "Prepare for battle," Armitage commanded, her voice steady and unwavering. "We strike first. Show them that humanity isn't afraid to fight." The crew sprang into action once more, each member of the team knowing their roles and the risks they were about to take. Armitage stood at the helm, her hand resting on the console. The Erebus wasn't just a warship. It was a message to the Carathians and the galaxy. Humanity would not be defeated. As the massive alien fleet loomed closer, Armitage braced herself for what was coming. The Erebus might be their only ship, but it was enough to remind the galaxy that sometimes a single ship could change the fate of everything. The battle was still fresh in the minds of the crew, the scars of their first clash with the Exarathians evident across the Erebus. Though the ship was being repaired, Armitage knew they couldn't afford to rest for long. The Exarathians had suffered losses, but they were far from broken. The Council had agreed to a temporary ceasefire, but the uneasy peace wouldn't last. The Erebus would be sent to reconnoiter, to probe Sarathian defenses and gather intelligence, but what they discovered would send a chill through Armitage's bones. The fleet had just emerged from warp, its sensors scanning the void when the report came in. "Captain, we've detected a massive anomaly at the edge of the system," the chief science officer said, his voice strained. It's unlike anything we've seen before." "What kind of anomaly?" Armitage asked, walking toward his station. "It's a massive structure. Over 6 times the size of any Sarathian ship we've encountered," he replied, turning the holographic display toward her. A jagged mass of dark metal and energy readings flared across the system. The structure was stationary, ominously still, and yet there was a sense of malice that hung in the air. "It's not a station, Captain. It's a weapon." Armitage's heart skipped a beat. The idea of a new weapon wasn't just a possibility, it was a certainty. The Xarathians had already demonstrated their capability for destruction, but this was something far darker. The ship's tactical officer spoke up, his voice tight with suspicion. "It's charging. Whatever it is, it's preparing to fire." "Shields up, weapons hot," Armitage ordered, her mind racing. The Erebus wasn't in optimal condition, but they couldn't afford to back down. "Prepare to engage." But before they could make a move, the massive structure unleashed its first blast. The energy surge was unlike anything the crew had ever seen before, bright, fiery, and overwhelming. The beam missed them by a fraction, striking the nearby asteroid belt, annihilating it in seconds. The Erebus trembled under the shockwave. "What the hell was that?" the first officer asked, his voice low with awe and fear. The science officer quickly analyzed the readings. "It's not just energy. It's a weapon designed to annihilate entire planets. That blast could have leveled an entire system." Armitage's blood ran cold. The Xarathians were preparing something catastrophic, something that could render entire star systems uninhabitable in moments. If this weapon was unleashed upon human colonies, it could wipe out any resistance before they had a chance to react. But as terrifying as that thought was, there was something else. A hidden truth that they had yet to uncover. "Captain," the communications officer interrupted, "we've intercepted a transmission from the enemy." Armitage straightened. "Patch it through." The image that appeared on the screen was not what she expected. It was a human face, pale and gaunt, eyes hollow with fear, but unmistakably human. The transmission crackled, and then the figure spoke in a rasping voice. "Stop them before it's too late. The hybrids, they are not just soldiers." The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Armitage's mind raced. The hybrids, the human soldiers that had been captured by the Xarathians and twisted into something else. The message seemed to suggest that they were more than mere weapons. What if they were being used as vessels for something more sinister? But the transmission was too brief to provide answers. Still, it was enough to plant the seed of doubt in her mind. "We need to find out what this weapon is," Armitage said, her voice firm. "And we need to understand what these hybrids are really capable of. They've been experimenting on humans for a reason. We can't let this go unanswered." The crew set to work immediately, analyzing every bit of data they could recover from the transmission and scanning the approaching weapon for weaknesses. There was no time to waste. The enemy was preparing for something catastrophic, and if they didn't act quickly, humanity might not survive. As the Erebus maneuvered closer to the weapon's source, the crew could feel the weight of what was at stake. The Xarathians weren't just seeking conquest. They were hunting for something far darker, and the only way to stop them was to confront it head-on, no matter the cost. And as the Erebus engines hummed toward the unknown, Captain Armitage knew this would be a fight not just for survival, but for the soul of humanity itself. The tension aboard the Erebus was palpable as the ship drifted closer to the massive weapon structure, now fully revealed as a doomsday device capable of wiping out entire planets. The crew had been working tirelessly, trying to decipher every piece of data they had gathered from the intercepted transmission. The message was still echoing in Armitage's mind. The words "the hybrids," they are not just soldiers, replaying like a warning. It was clear the Xarathians weren't simply trying to conquer. They were playing with something much darker. If the hybrids weren't just soldiers, then what were they? The thought gnawed at Armitage's mind as she stood in the command center, watching the ominous structure grow larger on the forward screen. "Captain," the tactical officer interrupted her thoughts. "The enemy fleet is moving. It's almost like they're anticipating our move." Armitage didn't need to look to know what that meant. The asterisk Erebus asterisk had made its presence known, and now the Sarethians were preparing for retaliation. Set course for the weapon. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We can't let them slow us down. The Erebus accelerated, its engines roaring to life, but even as the ship pushed forward, there was a nagging sense that time was running out. The enemy fleet was coming in fast, and Armitage knew that they wouldn't just be up against regular Sarathian forces. There would be hybrids among them, human soldiers twisted by the Sarathians' experiments. She tried to push the thought from her mind as they neared the structure. The ship shuddered slightly as they neared its gravitational field, and the ominous glow of the weapon's energy blasts continued to pulse in the distance. "Captain, we've detected another transmission," the communications officer called. "It's coming from the structure itself." "Patch it through," Armitage said, bracing herself for more disjointed warnings. But this time, the transmission was different. The voice on the screen wasn't human. It was something else, deep and distorted, as though it were trying to force itself into existence. "You don't understand what you are dealing with," it rasped. "The hybrids are the beginning. They are the vessels for the true power. The power that will wipe your kind from existence." The screen flickered, and then a face appeared, grotesque and alien, with twisted features, but there was something familiar in its eyes. Something human. "It was you," Armitage murmured. Her heart skipped a beat. The face was one she had seen before, on Earth. A face that belonged to one of the missing humans captured by the Sarathians during their early raids. The hybrid had been human once. The figure on the screen smiled darkly. "You think you can stop us? You cannot. The hybrid program is the first step in a larger plan. They are the future of this galaxy. And soon, they will become the core of a new, unstoppable force." Armitage's mind raced. The hybrids were not just enhanced soldiers. They were vessels, bearers of something darker, something that could change the very fabric of life in the galaxy. They had become a fusion of human and Sarathian, a perfect blend of their greatest strengths, and with that transformation, they were being prepared for something far more terrifying than anyone had anticipated. "Shut the transmission off," Armitage ordered, her voice sharp. She looked at the science officer. "Can you get a scan of the weapons core?" "We're trying, Captain, but there's interference from the structure. It's scrambling our sensors. We're working blind." "That's not good enough," Armitage muttered, pacing. She couldn't allow the hybrids to be the galaxy's downfall. "We need to know what we're facing. We need to destroy that weapon before they deploy it." Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden alert. "Captain," the first officer shouted, "Incoming. The enemy fleet has launched its attack." The asterisk Erebus asterisk was rocked by the first wave of fire. Enemy ships swarmed the space around them, their weapons lighting up the black void. The asterisk Erebus asterisk shields flared as the ship ducked and weaved, dodging blasts while returning fire. The enemy fleet was massive, but the real threat was something far worse. The hybrids were coming. They were here. From the swirling mass of enemy ships, strange figures emerged, human-like but twisted, their eyes glowing with an unnatural alien hue. They moved with a precision and ruthlessness that no human could ever match. They were more than soldiers. They were something else, and as the first hybrid boarded the Erebus with a chilling shriek, Armitage realized just how far the Exarathians had gone in their experiments. The hybrids moved quickly, slicing through the ship's corridors with brutal efficiency. They were faster, stronger, and more deadly than any human could be. The asterisk Erebus asterisk crew fought back, but the hybrids seemed unstoppable. The sound of combat echoed through the ship as the battle for survival turned into a nightmare. The Erebus was being overrun, and Armitage knew they needed to find the core of this new enemy and destroy it before it was too late. The truth was undeniable now. The hybrids weren't just an army. They were the future of the Sarathian conquest, and if humanity couldn't stop them here, the galaxy itself would fall under their dark reign. The asterisk Erebus asterisk trembled under the onslaught. The hybrids were everywhere, sharp, predatory, and relentless. They tore through the corridors with terrifying speed, their glowing eyes scanning every corner, hunting the crew. The ship's once secure halls now felt like a death trap, each step echoing the dread that gripped the hearts of the crew. They had trained for this, but no one was prepared for the brutality of the hybrids. Captain Armitage stood in the command center, her eyes locked on the tactical display as the crew desperately tried to hold their ground. The fight was spreading and the ship's systems were failing under the weight of the assault. The once proud warship was being ravaged from within, but the real threat wasn't the damage, it was the hybrids themselves. "Report," Armitage barked, her voice strained but steady. She refused to let the fear show, even as her mind raced with strategies. "We've lost control of sections 4 and 5, the tactical officer replied, sweat dripping from his forehead. "The hybrids have breached the inner security barriers. They're overwhelming us. The crew is holding them off, but we can't hold for long." Armitage's jaw clenched. They couldn't afford to lose the Erebus asterisk. Not now, not when they were so close. She knew they had to take the fight to the source of this nightmare. It wasn't just about defending the ship anymore. It was about stopping the hybrid program from spreading, from becoming the scourge of the galaxy. Is there any way to destroy the weapon? To take out the source of their control? Armitage asked, turning to the science officer. The scientist looked up from his station, fear in his eyes. The weapon itself is a hybrid of Tyrathian technology and human physiology. It's beyond our understanding, Captain. But the signal, the one controlling the hybrids, it's coming from somewhere within the structure. We might be able to sever it, but it'll take time. The system is designed to be impenetrable. Armitage's heart raced. Time. They didn't have time. The Exarathians were closing in on them, and every minute they spent battling the hybrids brought them one step closer to losing the war. "Then we'll make time," she said, determination hardening her voice. "Send a team to the weapons core. We need to destroy it before it's too late. The rest of us will hold the line." Without waiting for a response, Armitage turned to the bridge, prepared to divert all power to the engines and weapons. "We're not running. We're going to fight our way in." The crew scrambled into action, preparing for a final desperate push. The Erebus asterisk's engines roared as it surged forward, its battered hull cutting through the swarming Sarathian ships. Armitage's plan was simple: distract the enemy long enough for the team to reach the weapons core, where they could sabotage it from within. As the ship moved toward the heart of the enemy's fleet, the hybrids closed in. They were relentless, cutting through the ship's defenses with a savagery that left no room for mercy. But the crew of the Erebus asterisk fought back with every weapon they had: energy beams, missile strikes, and handheld weapons, all in a desperate attempt to keep the hybrids at bay. Hybrid forces closing in on Deck 12. The first officer called out, "We've got breaches all across the lower levels." Armitage's knuckles tightened on the console. "Send reinforcements to Deck 12. Hold them off as long as possible. The team is counting on us." The ship's corridors were filled with the chaos of war. The crew fought with every ounce of strength they had, but the hybrids were faster, stronger, and more deadly than anything they'd ever faced. Every time they thought they had gained ground, the hybrids would push forward with terrifying efficiency. The Erebus asterisk was a battlefield, its halls alive with the sounds of combat. Meanwhile, a small team of elite soldiers, led by the first officer, made their way toward the weapons core. Armed with advanced explosives and weapons designed to penetrate the heart of the Sarathian technology, they moved quickly through the chaos, knowing that every step brought them closer to their goal and to death. The structure they were headed toward loomed like a dark, twisted monument, its energy pulse growing stronger with each passing second. As they neared the core, the air grew thick with tension, the very atmosphere crackling with the power of the weapon. The team moved in, each member aware of the risk. If they failed, not only would the Erebus asterisk fall, but the entire galaxy would be plunged into darkness. Almost there, the first officer muttered, his breath heavy. They reached the central chamber, a room filled with strange machinery and flickering holographic displays. "What the hell is this?" one of the soldiers whispered. It's a hybrid control center, the first officer said grimly. We're not just dealing with weapons, we're dealing with a mind. The hybrids are connected to this network. Before they could react, a voice echoed through the room, one that sent chills down their spines. You cannot destroy us. You cannot stop what has already begun. The door slammed shut behind them. The battle for humanity's future had reached its final deadly confrontation. The room was an unnatural silence, the hum of the machinery reverberating through the walls. The team of soldiers, hearts pounding and weapons ready, stood frozen in place as the doors slammed shut behind them. In the center of the chamber, strange, alien devices pulsed with an eerie light, a network of wires and conduits stretching like veins across the walls. It was not just a weapon control room, it was the nerve center of the entire hybrid operation. The first officer, Lieutenant Marcus Kane, took a cautious step forward, his boots clicking against the metallic floor. He scanned the room, his hand hovering over his weapon. This is it. We destroy this, and we cripple their entire army. His voice was steady, but inside, he felt the weight of their task. The hybrids were more than just enhanced soldiers. They were connected to this machine, this dark core. If they failed here, it wasn't just their lives on the line. It was the future of the galaxy itself. Stay sharp, Kane whispered to his team. We don't know what we're dealing with yet. One of the soldiers, a woman named Sergeant Nina Reyes, moved to a console on the far side of the room. She tapped a few keys, trying to access the system. I'm in, she said. This thing's encrypted, but I'm starting to get a reading. It's all connected, a massive neural network that links the hybrids together. Like a hive mind, Kane muttered. Exactly, Reyes replied. And it's not just controlling them, it's feeding off them. These hybrids, they're not just hosts for the Terathians, they're batteries. Kane clenched his fists. This was worse than they thought. The hybrids weren't just the enemy, they were being used as fuel for something far darker. But there was no time for further analysis. Kane could feel the pressure mounting. They needed to act. How long until you can disable it? Kane demanded. Reyes hesitated. It's going to take a few more minutes. This system is unlike anything we've encountered. It's alien in every sense of the word. We'll need to overload the central core to shut it down. It'll destroy everything in here. Kane nodded. Then make it fast. We don't have much time. The door to the chamber suddenly slammed open with a deafening noise. The hybrids were here. They moved with inhuman precision, their eyes glowing with cold, predatory intelligence. At the forefront was one hybrid in particular, a towering figure, its features twisted into something monstrous. Its gaze locked onto Kane's, and for a moment, he felt a sickening chill run down his spine. This wasn't just a soldier. It was the embodiment of their nightmare. You should not have come here, the hybrid growled, its voice a mixture of human and something far darker. This is the future. You cannot stop us. Kane gritted his teeth. We'll see about that. He motioned for his team to spread out, the crack of gunfire filling the room as they opened fire. But the hybrids were fast, too fast. Their movements were fluid, almost liquid, as they dodged and counterattacked with terrifying skill. One soldier went down in an instant, his scream echoing through the chamber as the hybrid tore through his armor like paper. Fall back. Kane shouted, but there was no room to retreat. The hybrids were closing in from every side. Reyes was still working at the console, her fingers flying over the keys. Almost there, she muttered, her voice tight with concentration. I need just a few more seconds. Kane's pulse raced as he fired at a charging hybrid, the rounds bouncing off its reinforced skin. He had to hold them off long enough for Reyes to finish. The chamber felt like it was closing in on him, the walls pressing in as the hybrids closed in. Every step felt heavier, and the air was thick with tension. Time's up. Reyes called out. I've triggered the overload sequence. We need to get out. No. Kane didn't hesitate. Move. The team sprinted for the exit, the hybrids closing in behind them with furious speed. Kane could hear their breathing, ragged and distorted, and the sounds of their footsteps as they chased them down. They were relentless. But the countdown had begun. Ray's voice came through his comms. The core is going to blow any second. If we don't make it out, this whole place is going to disintegrate. They reached the door, but it wouldn't open. The hybrids were right behind them, their hands stretching out to grab, to kill. Kane punched the control panel, desperation surging through him. The door slid open with a hiss, and the team bolted out into the narrow hallway. "Keep moving," Kane shouted as they sprinted down the hallway, the pressure mounting with every passing second. The entire ship seemed to shake as the countdown reached its final moments. The explosion came in a flash, a blinding, white-hot wave of energy that consumed everything in its path. The Erebus shuddered violently as the blast tore through the heart of the hybrid control center, the massive structure collapsing in on itself. The shockwave sent the team sprawling, the ship groaning as if it were about to tear itself apart. Kane pushed himself to his feet, coughing from the dust and smoke that filled the air. He looked around at his team, bruised and battered but alive. "We did it," he said, though his voice held little triumph. The hybrid army was crippled, but the war was far from over. The Erebus had just been given a fighting chance, and so had the galaxy. The explosion that rocked the Erebus sent tremors through the entire ship. For a moment, everything was chaos, lights flickering, alarms blaring, and the sound of the ship groaning under the strain of its failing systems. The crew, disoriented but resolute, scrambled to assess the damage. In the distance, they could feel the dying thrum of the hybrid control center as it imploded into nothingness, taking with it the heart of the Sarathian hybrid program. "We're still alive," Lieutenant Kane muttered, his breath ragged. His team had made it out of the heart of the facility just in time, but the battle wasn't over yet. The hybrids, though severely weakened, still remained, scattered across the galaxy, still dangerous. They had become a symbol of the Sarathian menace. "Report," Captain Armitage's voice rang through the bridge, calm amidst the storm of chaos. "Captain, the weapons core has been destroyed," the science officer said, his voice tinged with disbelief. "The hybrids no longer have a central command. Their network is fractured, but the damage to the Erebus is severe. We've lost propulsion, and many of our systems are offline. We need repairs immediately." Armitage nodded, but she was already moving. "Is the enemy fleet in disarray?" "Yes, Captain," the tactical officer responded. "They're retreating. Without the core to control the hybrids, they're lost. Their ships are in disarray, but we should still expect pockets of resistance. We need to finish them off while we have the chance." Armitage's mind raced. They had succeeded in crippling the hybrid forces, but the war was far from over. The damage to the Erebus was bad, but they still had a chance. If they could strike now, before the Carathians regrouped, they could turn the tide of the war. "Prepare the remaining functional weapons," Armitage ordered, her eyes narrowing. "We'll take down as many of their ships as we can. Let's finish this." Kane, still catching his breath, stood beside her, his gaze focused on the view screen as the retreating Sarathian fleet began to scatter. "We might have shattered their command structure, but we still need to figure out how to deal with the hybrids that are still out there. There's too much we don't know about them yet." "I know," Armitage replied, her voice firm. "But this is our chance. We strike now before they can regroup and bring in reinforcements. We can't afford to let this drag on." The Erebus surged forward, despite its damaged systems, its remaining weapons firing with lethal precision at the retreating Sarathian fleet. The crew fought with everything they had, the resolve of a people who had fought for their very survival. Each blast from the Erebus guns was a defiant statement to the Sarathians. Humanity would not go quietly into the dark. As the last of the Sarathian ships went down, the crew took a collective breath. The immediate threat had been dealt with, but Armitage knew the war was far from over. There were still pockets of hybrids scattered across the galaxy, creatures of unimaginable power who had been twisted into something between human and monster. Their presence would be a constant threat until they could be eradicated completely. Kane was already making his way to the bridge's central console, the weight of the situation pressing on his shoulders. "Captain," he said, his voice low, "we've won this battle, but there's a larger war ahead. We need to figure out how to find the hybrids and root them out. This won't stop until we do." Armitage turned to him, her face set with determination. "I know. And we will. We'll rebuild our fleet, we'll gather our forces, and we'll hunt down every last one of them. But for now, let's take a moment." The crew of the Erebus shared a moment of quiet, knowing that while the immediate fight was over, the war for the future of humanity had only just begun. They had faced the darkness and lived to see another day, but the road ahead would be long, fraught with peril, and filled with unknown dangers. The Erebus may have been damaged, but the heart of humanity remained unbroken. And as the crew gathered, battered but resolute, Captain Armitage knew one thing for certain. Humanity had just discovered the price of survival, and they would pay it, whatever it took. "Let's get to work," Armitage said, her voice steady. "There's no time to waste." The Erebus engines hummed as the ship, scarred but unyielding, moved forward into the uncertain future.